Hello, welcome to Knitting Needles and Stems. I'm Carrie, I'm your host. Today we're going to talk about works in progress, finished objects, knit-alongs, my patterns, and gardening. Let's jump right in. So for what's new this week, the snow is melting. You can see outside there's not as much snow on the ground out there. We actually had a day that was up into the 70s last week, and it was really nice. Of course, I was stuck in the tax office, but that's okay because it's warming up. Spring is coming and we are ready for it. Today it's only in the 30s for the high though, so it is still technically winter here where we are in northern Wisconsin. Another thing that's new is we got a 3D printer. You can see it's set up right here behind me now. That's really cool. When we went to Kentucky in November, my dad had one, and we were looking at all the things that he could make, and he made a few things for the kids, and so we decided that we wanted to get ourselves one too. So I've made a few things, but a couple of the things that I've made, a little balloon animal dog, how adorable is that? And a little owl. I've made several other things too. This is just a little owl. And we've just made lots of things with it. It's been really fun to look on the website and see what all we can make out of 3D printing. We have 4 colors that are on there all the time. We've bought more colors. We're going to get some spools so we can change the colors out, and we're just going to have a lot of fun with that. So that's pretty much all that's new. Like I said, I'm still working doing taxes. We got about 6 more weeks of tax season, and then I'll have a little bit more time to work on podcasts. They'll be coming a little more frequently then. So without further ado, let's just jump right in to works in progress. The first thing that I've been working on is the Clean 2025 by Silke R. For this one, it's one of the Saturday social projects in the Knitting in the Loft group. For this one, I'm using Knit Picks Dishie and Mulberry and Lilac Mist. And you can see here, I have the 25 and I have part of the 20 here. This is going to be another heart, and there's one of the hearts. It's mosaic knitting. It's so much fun. When you're reading a mosaic knitting pattern, instead of like with stranded color work where you read one row for each, there's a line on the chart for each row. With mosaic, there's one line on the chart for 2 rows. So you work the same row forward and then you work it for the back of the row too. And you slip the stitches to make the design, and you're only using one color at a time. So mosaic knitting is a lot of fun, but it takes a little bit of getting used to with reading the charts and stuff. So again, that's Clean 2025 by Silke R. And I'm using Knit Picks Dishie and Mulberry and Lilac Mist. The second thing I've been working on is my Project a Month Knit Along project. It's our project for the month. It's the Popple Bandana pattern by the Lamb and Kids Designs. For this one, I'm using yarn that I got from Journey Alpacas here in Hayward. This one also uses one color at a time, and it uses slip stitches, but this is not mosaic knitting. It is just using slip stitches. And it makes this really cool design going across the bandana. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this bandana yet. I'm not really a bandana wearer. Maybe I can make it a little bigger into a cowl, or maybe I'll start wearing bandanas. I don't know. So again, this is Popple Bandana by the Lamb and Kid Designs. And for this one, I'm using Journey Alpacas. The gray is a natural. It's undyed from one of the alpacas there. And the purple was hand dyed by Sue, the owner there. And that's a local farm here in Hayward called Joyful Journey Alpacas. You can go have farm tours there, and she has a really nice farm store. let's see. The next thing that I've been working on is Handspan by Staiman. For this one, I started these mittens these gloves because I was looking for a pattern to make some gloves for my regular coat. I have one for my work coat. I have a pair of gloves, but I like to have a pair of gloves in my regular everyday coat. And I didn't have one. All I had was fingerless gloves. So I started making it with the Woolens and Nosh Advent 2024 yarn that I use for my socks. So this is what was left of one of the skeins of that, and then this is what was left of the contrast. Well, then I ran out of those for the first glove, and I used just a blue that I had left over. I think it was left over from, was left over from another project, but I can't remember exactly what project it was. It might have been my happy triangle that I finished before I started the podcast. But the glove is knit all in one piece. The yarn is not cut for each finger. You simply close the finger, thread the yarn through the finger into the glove, and then start the next finger. And you're supposed to secure the yarn inside. I haven't done that yet because I'm still working on the second glove. So you can see where I just have the yarn loose inside of here, going from the tip of the finger, and then it goes down, and then I start on the next finger. I might just leave it like that because it doesn't bother me. My fingers don't get caught on it when I put the gloves on or when I take them off. But if I feel like there's a need later, then maybe I'll sew that in. So you can see I have one of the gloves completed. The other one is almost complete. This one, I have the 2025 Advent yarn here. I had already used all of that contrast color, so I used the other blue that I had used on the other pair, and then I pulled out this gold color from leftovers that I had from a gnome that I had made at one point. So I'm almost done. I have 2 more fingers to do on this one, and then those will be complete. Again, that is Handspan by Jeny Staiman, and I'm using my Woolens and Nosh Advent 2024 leftover yarn from the socks that I made with that, and then just other random leftovers for those. The last knitting project that I was working on, I actually started it today so that I would have something to work on while I was watching church online. It's the Musselburgh by Ysolda Teague. For this one, I wanted to use up, you might recognize this yarn from my flax pullover that I've completed. This is Knitologie Sheen in the Titmouse colorway. So for at least half of the hat, I'm going to use this color. For the other half, I'm not sure what color I'll use. Maybe I'll use a dark solid color or find another variegated that might go good with these colors. But I've started the increases on the one side. Musselburgh is a double-sided hat. You start at the crown of one side of the hat, and you increase to the hat size that you need. She makes it so you can use any size yarn. So you pick your yarn and your needles, you start the hat, you measure your gauge, and then it tells you how many stitches you need in each section before you start to knit just the plain tube, before then decreasing on the other side, therefore making a tube with 2 ends, or what looks like 2 hats that are attached together in the middle. And then you finish it off, sew in the ends, shove one side inside the other, and then you have a double-sided hat. It's like double warm, perfect for a really cold winter. This one's made with fingering yarn, so really it could be used for a mild winter because fingering yarn double would be just like a worsted or maybe an Aran weight hat. Again, that's Musselburgh by Ysolda Teague using Knitologie Sheen in the Titmouse colorway. And I'm not sure what other color I'm going to end up using for that. I'm still working on my Day's End by Judy Gibson, counted cross stitch. This one I work on for an hour every Tuesday. You can see I'm getting farther along around the outside. I have a little part of the deer here, a little part of the tree here, but it's getting there at an hour a week. You don't get a lot done, but at least it's getting something done on it every week. I'm already thinking of other things, other cross stitch patterns that I would like to make, but I really want to get this one done before I make any other ones. So again, that's Day's End by Judy Gibson, counted cross stitch, and it was a kit. Now let's move on to finished objects. The first finished object that I have is my Rustic Dream sweater by Ladianna Henderson. I'm wearing it for you today. Remember this beautiful color work yoke, and it was just straight knitting down to the bottom, and then we have the ribbed edge. I went with short sleeves because I started to run out of yarn. When I was working on the first sleeve, I tapered it so that it would be smaller at the wrist, and when I put on the sweater, it just was not feeling right like that. And I knew that if I wasn't able to taper it, that it wasn't going to work. So I decided to go with short sleeves, which is even better. I can wear it in the spring and the fall when it's warm enough that I don't need long sleeves but still cool enough to wear a sweater. Or in the winter, if I want to wear it with a long sleeve shirt, I have plenty of long sleeve shirt options to wear under it. So I'm really happy with how this one turned out. This was, again, made with yarn that I got on my trip to Chicago in 2019. I visited 4 different yarn stores. First was Knitch in Delafield, Wisconsin. Then I went to Blue Boxer Arts in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Knit One LLC in Chicago, Illinois. And then I visited Fiddlehead Yarns in Kenosha, Wisconsin. And you can see the whole list of the yarns that were used in the show notes. There are several different yarns that I bought at each of the stores, and I have a lot of them left over. So I get to figure out what I'm going to make with those. Maybe I'll use one of them for the other side of my Musselburgh hat. We'll see. Again, that was Rustic Dreams sweater by Ladianna Henderson. The next thing that I finished were the 5 easy washcloth patterns by Sweet Bee Crochet. I started these when we were in Kentucky on vacation in November. There were 5, like I said, like the name says, 5 easy washcloth patterns. They're crocheted. I used Knit Picks Dishie, worsted, and navy, and a lime green. I'm not sure what the actual color name of that one was. And then I used peaches and cream, stripey, and denim, and green stripes. So the first one, this one was the Suzette stitch, and it was made with the green stripes. Then we have the lemon peel stitch, which was made with the lime. The even moss stitch was made with the blue stripes. The extended single crochet was made with the navy. And the half double crochet, I used the leftovers from each of the yarns. And here you can see I had just a little bit of the blue stripes, a little bit of the navy, a little bit more of the green stripes, but I have a lot of the green, the lime green, and I still have a little bit of that left. So I can make that into another washcloth or do whatever I decide to do with that. Again, that was 5 easy washcloth patterns by Sweet Bee Crochet. And I used Knit Picks Dishie in worsted in navy and this lime green color. And then I used peaches and cream stripey in denim and green stripes. The last thing that I finished was All Work No Play by Sarah Shira. For this one I used Sock Obsessions Yarn Resilient Smooth sock in the Bad Influence colorway. And I ended up using one of the leftover colors from my sweater, actually. So let me just look that one up real quick because I did not make a note of it. The other one that I used was Tosh Unicorn Tails and the charcoal colorway, and that was for her body. The white that I used was left over from other gnomes, and she has these gorgeous braids. I decided she didn't need mittens because she's going to be in a spring landscape for an art installation that I'm making for the local art show. So in spring you don't wear your mittens, so she's not going to wear her mittens. But I love the way that the hat turned out with this variegated striping yarn, slightly striping yarn, and the gray that we just went perfect with the Sock Obsessions yarn. So again, this is All Work Gnome Play by Sarah Shira, using Sock Obsessions Resilient Smooth Sock in the Bad Influence colorway and Tosh Unicorn Tails in charcoal. Next, let's talk about knit-alongs. The Unraveling podcast is still working through the Patty Lyons Knitting Bag of Tricks workbook and book. They have moved on way past where I am. I don't know what section they're actually on. They're on lesson 4 maybe now. And they have a group, a thread set up in the Unraveling group on Ravelry, Unraveling podcast group on Ravelry for the knit along. So you can jump on there, you can read through everything that everybody's done, even if you don't have the books, or you can go buy the books and work through your own lessons and then join in the threads, however you want to do it. But you should definitely get the book. It teaches you a lot about your knitting, even if you think you are really great at knitting, and maybe you are really great at knitting. There's always stuff that you can learn about how you're knitting and how you can make it easier for yourself. So again, that's the Knitting Bag of Tricks and the Knitting Bag of Tricks workbook by Patty Lyons, and the knit along is in the Unraveling podcast group. The other knit along that I participate in is the Project a Month knit along, or CAL. And that for that one, we are doing the Popple Bandana pattern by the Lamb and Kids Designs that I showed you a minute ago. We have a different free project every month that we work on in that group. And you can come and share your progress, share your yarn you're going to use, or just pop in and drop a picture of the finished project, or come and cheer everybody on. Whatever you want to do is fine with us. That's the Project a Month CAL group, and the pattern this month for March is the Popple Bandana by the Lamb and Kids Designs. In the last knit along that I'm participating in is hosted by the Yarniacs podcast, and it's the self-indulgent knit along. It actually ends on March 20th. Today, the day I'm recording, is March 16th. So there's only a few days left of it. Hopefully you caught it on the last episode and were able to jump over there and join in on that fun. I finished my one project, was my sweater that I finished for that knit along, and the second project that I'm hoping to finish in the next few days are my Handspan gloves by Jennifer, Handspan by Jeny Staiman. Those, I'm hoping to get those other 2 fingers done in the next 4 days. So again, that's the Yarniacs podcast group on Ravelry that hosts the self-indulgent knit along. And whatever makes the knit self-indulgent for you, the knit, crochet, weaving, whatever, is self-indulgent. If it's the yarn that you've been waiting to use, if it's the pattern you want to make for yourself, if it's a special pattern you want to make for somebody else, if it's special wool that you would like to spin, whatever makes it self-indulgent is fine for that knit along. Next, let's talk about my patterns. First, I want to talk about my mystery spring critter make-along. I braid a pattern every spring, and I have for this will be the 5th year that I've done that. And it's for a different animal to be made. And that pattern always comes out on April 1st. The first clue always comes out on April 15th as a celebration for the end of tax season. So this year's animal has been tested. It's available in knit and crochet. And like I said, it's going to be available on April 1st. I'll probably have a coupon code for listeners, so just tune in April and see if you can jump in on that coupon code. I have a make-along in my group on Ravelry. It's the Carried from Fleece group, because that is my designer name on Ravelry. So I will let you know when the mystery spring critter for 2025 is available. And it'll be available on April 1st, but I'll let you know for sure on here that it's available and you can go grab it. The other pattern that I've been working on is a new shawl pattern. I don't have a name for this, but for this one I'm using Leading Men Fiber Arts Show Stealer in Bare Necessities, Krampus, and Poison Apple. It's a shawl that will have lace and stockinette sections, kind of striping, but not really striping. And I like the unique design, the unique way that the colors fall together and the lace falls together. But I don't want to show you too much of it because it's not ready yet. But I can show you the beautiful colors from Leading Men Fiber Arts. It's Poison Apple, Bare Necessities, and Krampus. It can be made obviously in any colors, but I think this one, I'm hoping to have it ready for this Christmas to be able to come out because of the colors that I chose. I think that'll be a good time for it to be available for purchase. So that's a new shawl pattern. I haven't named it yet, but that is using Leading Men Fiber Arts Show Stealer in Bare Necessities, Krampus, and Poison Apple. Now let's move on to gardening. I don't know if you remember my orchids from a couple episodes ago. I have one mini orchid that I recently repotted. I cleaned out all the old mulch and repotted it in new mulch. I cut off the stem that the bloom was on because it never did open. And they were looking a little wilty. She's still looking a little wilty, but not as wilty as she was before. I think she's doing a lot better in the new medium. She didn't have a lot of roots. I cut back all the dead roots and just kept the new ones. And I think she's looking a little better. My bigger orchid was having the same problem with wilting on the leaves. But the leaves are nice and smooth now. Some of them are a little still dried up, but those are the ones that are going to be dying off. I got her this new pot. It's actually a plastic pot, which orchids seem to thrive in plastic pots. And you can see it's well draining. And there's even holes in the bottom of the bottom part of the pot so that it won't hold too much moisture, because orchids do not do well if they're holding a lot of moisture. You can see the holes in the bottom there. So because I wasn't sure if I needed a bigger pot when I repotted the big one, I simply took it out of the soil that it was in, loosened up the roots, which were really compacted in there, got all the old mulch out of there, and stuck it in water where just the bottom I soaked the roots first and got them all wet. And then I had enough water into the bottom of a cylindrical container that I had so that just the bottom parts of the roots would be touching the water. And she stayed really healthy in there for just a few days until I got my new pot. And now she seems to be doing really well in the new pot that I planted her in. So just pay attention to your plants. They usually will let you know if there's something they're not happy about. I could tell that by the wilting of the leaves that they were not happy with the medium that they were in. But because the little one was actually trying to bloom, I didn't want to do it while it was blooming you should not repot while they're blooming. You should do it after they're done blooming. And then they can put more effort into the leaves and not so much effort into the blooms. So that was my mini orchid and my big orchid. They both seem to be doing well. And that's all I have for today. So until next time, keep doing what you love.